There's a strange kind of silence that surrounds great games once they've already proven everything they needed to prove. Not the silence of irrelevance, but the silence is something so complete that it almost feels untouchable. Red Dead Redemption 2 lives in that space. It isn't discussed because it failed, it isn't revisited because it aged poorly. It's quite because, in many ways, it already won. And yet, here we are again, talking about it, not because nostalgia demands it, but because time has quietly exposed a contradiction at the heart of Rockstar's modern agency. I'm gonna tell you what I mean. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most celebrated games ever made, no doubt. And it still doesn't exist in its best form on modern consoles, which is strange. The absence is starting to feel louder than any announcement. In fact, nearly 7 years after its release, Red Dead Redemption 2 remains locked behind backwards compatibility on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, no native versions, no performance modes, no 60 frames per second. Just brute force hardware doing its best to prop up a game designed for a different era. It's playable, of course, it's stable, it's still beautiful, but it is also quite a bit restrained. In isolation, that wouldn't be unusual, of course. Rockstar has never rushed upgrades, but context matters, and right now context is doing a lot of talking. Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed to late 2026. Rockstar's release calendar has suddenly opened up. Take-Two has publicly committed to multiple remasters and a re-release before 2028. The original Red Dead Redemption 2 got another yet revival across modern platforms and even mobile, including Switch 2, and quietly, almost carelessly, a developer profile linked to Grove Street Games mentions as unannounced 2026 projects targeting PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X consoles and PC. No screenshots, no logo, no confirmation either, just enough smoke to remind people what is missing. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 is not just due for a next generation version, it's an anomaly without one. It ain't about graphical vanity, you see. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't need prettier sunsets, It's about friction, about the growing gap between how the game feels on PC and how it feels somewhere else. 30 frames per second fundamentally changes how the world breathes. Gunfights feel heavier than intended, horseback traversal loses some of its fluidity, the responsiveness Rockstar spent years tuning is just softened by technical sailing that no longer needs to exist. On PC, you see Red Dead Redemption 2 feels alive in a different way. No redesign, reveal, higher frame rates don't alter the soul of the game, they remove the glass between player and the world. Once you've experienced that version, the console experience kind of starts to feel like a compromise rather than a choice. And that's the core of the conversation here. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't need reinvention. It needs permission to be itself. Of course, Rockstar knows this, Take-Two knows this. The numbers make it impossible to ignore. With over, 80 million copies sold, Red Dead Redemption 2 is already one of the best-selling games of all time, and it continues to sell. Not through aggressive monetization, not through live service hooks and stuff, but because people keep discovering it, recommending it, and returning to it, myself included. That kind of longevity is not normal, it is cultural. Which is exactly why the idea of a next-gen upgrade for this game feels less like a cash grab and more like inevitability. Rockstar has already set the precedent. Grand Theft Auto 5 crossed 3 million console generations, each time gaining tangible improvements. Load times vanished, performance stabilized, visual fidelity climbed. The game wasn't replaced, it was just refined. Red Dead Redemption 2 deserves the same treatment, if not more. But here's where things get a little complicated. Any mention of Grove Street Games immediately triggers skepticism, and not without reason. You see, the launch of Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy Definitive Edition, damaged trust by a lot. Even years of patches haven't fully erased the memory of how that release landed. For some players, in fact, the idea of Grove Street touching Red Dead Redemption 2 feels like a warning sign rather than a promise. Yet that reaction overlooked an important distinction: scope. A Red Dead Redemption 2 next-gen version doesn't require reinterpretation. It doesn't require asset replacement or systemic redesign, it requires optimization, performance scaling, and platform-native enhancements. It is not about rebuilding the game by any means, it's about removing bottlenecks. And in that context, Grove Street's history becomes more nuanced. They have handled ports, they've handled technical support, they've worked under Rockstar supervision. If Rockstar is involved at the oversight level, as they almost certainly would be, the risk profile changes dramatically. More importantly, Rockstar cannot afford to mishandle Red Dead Redemption 2. This isn't just another remaster, it's a statement about how the studio treats its legacy during a generational transition. With Grand Theft Auto 6 looming on the horizon, everything Rockstar releases beforehand will be read as a signal. And next generation Red Dead Redemption 2 done right reinforces that trust. Done wrong, it amplifies anxiety. And anxiety already exists right now. You see, Starfield reminded players what happened when ambition outpaces cohesion. Cyberpunk reminded them what happens when promises collapse under pressure. Players are no longer dazzled by scale alone. They're sensitive to execution, to care, to intent. That is why in next generation, Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't need new content to justify itself, it needs restraint. For example, 60 frames per second, native 4K resolution, improved texture filtering, modern lighting passes, faster load times of course, and DualSense integration where it makes sense. Nothing excessive, nothing flashy, just alignment. Because Red Dead Redemption 2's greatest strength has always been texture in the emotional sense. The quiet moments, the way Arthur dismounts after like a long ride, the pause before a gunfight turns fatal, the ambient sound of a camp settling down at night. Those moments benefit more from smoothness rather than spectacle. Higher performance doesn't just improve combat, it improves stillness. And that's why this conversation's never gonna die. If Red Dead Redemption 2 is next, we won't hear about it through leaks forever. At some point, it will simply appear. Position is inevitable rather than reactive. Until then, speculation just fills the void as always. But few games released in 2018 still inspire this level of discussion without controversy or desperation. People aren't asking for Red Dead Redemption 2 because they're bored. They're asking because the game still feels relevant and unfinished only in a technical sense, which is quite rare. And whether the next-gen version arrives in 2026 or not, quietly alongside a larger Rockstar strategy, one thing is clear. Red Dead Redemption 2 hasn't been left behind time. Time itself simply caught up to it.